Hello, my name is Brianna and welcome to my channel. This is my first time doing a voiceover, so I hope it turns out well. So today I'm going to be swatching the Holbein Irodori Gouache seasonal sets. At the end of the video, I'll show you a painting that I completed with using some of the colors from the spring set. I think it turned out really well there, so be sure to just check that out. Some of my sets came with this little pamphlet. I honestly can't read kanji, so luckily there's some English translations to go along with it. There's also a color chart on each of the sets in this pamphlet, and it shows things like obviously the colors, but also the series letter for each of the pigments. Looking at it, I think they're all series A. I don't know if that's helpful, but feel free to pause if you'd like to read a little bit more from the pamphlet. It was really interesting to be able to get something like this with these sets. And if you're new to gouache, there's a couple different versions of gouache. There's acrylic gouache, which it treats it very similar to acrylics. It will dry out after a while. You can't re-wet it. Versus artist gouache, which can be re-wettable. It's very similar to like watercolor, but a bit more opacity there. Irodori gouache is something I haven't really seen before. From what I've seen, it's supposed to mimic traditional Japanese paints, and something I saw while researching a while back, there was this like Holbein Irodori watercolor set, but it looks like it's been discontinued for a while, and then to replace these gouache paints were released. I'm honestly not sure when these sets were actually released to the public. I want to say it was a couple years ago, but I did have a really hard time finding anything when I was in Japan looking at a bunch of art stores. The only time I really saw these Irodori sets was in Hokkaido, and the Hokkaido in Shinjuku, I believe, or Shibuya. I didn't even see any open stock Irodori tubes. So if you're looking for anything like that, if you're in Japan, just keep that in mind. They were also in a completely different section than the regular gouache. Like these paints were over an aisle with dry pigments, like the stuff you would use to, make your own paints. So I think I was pretty lucky being able to find these. So the first set I'll be swatching is this winter set. I noticed as I was going through everything, it has a lot of nice reds and browns to contrast against the cool blues you'll see later on. It feels really reminiscent of a winter landscape. I actually really like the color palette they chose here. I don't tend to use a lot of browns, but thankfully there's only 3 of them at the beginning. there's a bit more brighter colors. Like I wouldn't really expect the patina to be in this set, but it contrasts well with the crimson if you're especially thinking of like Christmassy holiday colors. Those two colors together would make me think of like a poinsettia, especially with the peony. Peony. But yeah, I really liked all these colors. I think this was a really pretty set to work with. I also really liked this russet green color. It reminded me of when I was in college back when I did a lot of oil paintings. I always painted in sap green. It was like the ugliest color to me, but I was like, okay, I want to just try to make something pretty with just a really gross green looking color. So it was literally the only color I would ever use at the time. I honestly didn't understand how to use colors back then or mix anything. So I would just take the sap green and mix it with every other color on my palette. And so everything had this like antique greenish hue to it. And it somehow worked with my paintings. It's not something I really tend to do anymore with my paints. I focus more on doing like a limited color palette now, but that's just how I learned to do oil paints because I guess I never learned right the first time. This set also comes with a really pretty antique gold. I don't tend to use metallics or glittery paints in most of my paintings, but this is really making me want to use it for like I guess power lines when I'm doing my training paintings. I think that would look really cool. It's making me think of this like washi tape I got while I was in loft, and it uses these really nice gold accents to do power lines and like whimsical like little breezes along the washi tape. It just looked really pretty and just fits my aesthetic really well. Um, so I'm glad I bought that washi tape and use it as inspiration, and hopefully I'll use this gold in some of my paintings in the future. The next set I'm going to be swatching out is the spring set. And like I said, I used this before in one of my paintings. I'm really happy that I picked this as my first set to use for Irodori gouache. I would highly recommend it if you like working in pastels or if you have other gouache sets. Since it's not really the primaries, it gives you a little bit more of a variety. I was honestly really surprised to find that the pigments blended really easily together. It didn't get muddy super quickly. I honestly only had muddy issues like later on when I was mixing, just because I was just mixing the same pigments over and over. But yeah, I usually have a really hard time getting good saturation with pastels, and so it was just really surprising to see that I wasn't having that issue with these gouache tubes. I've had that issue before with the Turner Designer gouache. I don't tend to really like those colors as much, just or the brand. I like the Turner acrylic gouache, but not the designers. It just feels very chalky, and I don't know, it feels like there's not a lot of pigment with them, and so I'm just fighting the entire time to get anything good to come out of a painting. But with these paints, it was just it it kind of reminded me of working with oils, where it was just like so easy to mix the colors. Um, Again, I just didn't expect that, and now that I'm like doing the voiceover and looking at all the pigment information, there's a lot of pigments mixed in with most of these colors. Like the pale patina. I mean, actually, that's the same color as the patina in the winter set. It's just mixed with a bit more yellow and white, I believe. I don't know pigment numbers and names that well, but yeah, most of these have at least 2 to 3 pigments mixed together. And typically, the more pigments you have, the you know more muddy your paintings could get, just because like there's so many things getting mixed in all at once. Um, but yeah, I honestly didn't have too much trouble getting good colors with this set, so I'd highly recommend it if you have some already lying around and are just looking for a nice set of pastels. I think my favorite color out of this set, and I always love ochres, but if I just disregard the light ochre, it's the Myotis blue. I don't know if I said that right, but it's just a really nice pale blue. It reminds me of like the color of the sky that you would normally see on like a overcast day, or just over like a really nice field, or when you're like walking in a city. Um, this is the type of blue I would think of, and I've always had trouble getting colors that are for the sky, so it was very helpful getting this, and I used it a lot in my painting that I did. And now I know that these sets can be pretty expensive if you try to buy them outside of Japan. Just be aware of that. The spring set I got for about 4,500 yen, about 4,500 yen, or back when I got it, it was around 30 US dollars. But if you're trying to buy these like online, I found most of these on Amazon for around $55 to $65. They fluctuate a lot on Amazon, at least whenever I look at it, it can get up to like $80 on there. But other art stores like Jerry's Artorama carries them, but I mean, those are usually over $100 just for one of the sets. So just be aware that these can be a bit hard to find cheap. I also ended up just getting the one spring set because I wanted to see if I actually liked it back then. And now that I know, I kind of wish I had bought all of them. But having it be like a while since I've been traveling, and like it's been like 3 years since I had been in Japan, I was kind of concerned about like trying to get paints over to the US. Like I was afraid that TSA was going to take them, so I only got one of the sets just in case like they're like, oh no, we're going to throw it out. That way it wasn't like a huge loss for me. But now that I know, like it was not too bad trying to buy paints and bring them overseas. I think I might try to get a bit more the next time I go out. Something that makes me a bit sad is I would love to be able to buy some of the oil paints, the Holbein oils, while I'm over there, but it's just very hard to be able to fly with oils. I know that some artists are able to, but I'm always just worried that my TSA will just be like, no, you can't have these at all. These are too flammable. And I was even worried about that with acrylic gouache and just like this regular gouache, just them like not being okay with it. And I didn't want to waste all that money trying to bring it all home. I was so paranoid trying to bring these paints back home that I printed off the manufacturer data sheet, the manufacturer safety data sheets, off like the Holbein website, just to prove that these paints weren't flammable, and I had them down for like every single paint brand that I was going to get, or anything that I could think of, and I just had them stuffed in this Ziploc bag with all of my paints. And I was just hoping that I would get a TSA agent or anyone who opened up my suitcase. I was just hoping that I would get someone who was nice and just be like, oh yeah, these are just like normal artist paints. Because I was really worried that I was gonna lose everything and be like, well, I can never bring anything home. So I'm really glad I didn't have any issues this time. And my cat is about to join us. You want to jump? You want to jump up? Good girl. Hi, that's my laptop. Please do not mess anything up. I am trying to record a video right now. Hi baby, you wanna stand right there? She's very upset because it is time for her food and her medicine, and she wants to go to bed. But I've been in this room trying to record, and she's throwing a fit. I feel like the bamboo green is a very pretty color in this set. My only gripe with it is it's very similar to the pale patina in the spring set, and looking at the pigments, it uses the same pigments as the pale patina, except pale patina uses PY3, bamboo green uses PG7 and PW6. It's still a really nice color if this is the only set you could get. I also really like the Oriental Blue. It's PB15 and PG7, and if I'm looking at the other colors, looks like it's similar to the winter set Geisha Blue that has PB15, PG7, and PW6. So looking at most of these colors, it feels like a lot of the ones in the summer set are mimicked in some of the other sets, with just a little bit of pigment differentiation. So that's something to consider. And now that I'm looking at the black post making this video, it seems to have lightened up a lot after I had swatched it. It looked like very dark when I had first swatched it, but now it's a bit lighter. So I think that's just another thing I would consider when trying to hedge your bets on which set to buy. Because honestly, the blue black in the winter set looks like a deeper, darker black than the black in the summer set, which is pretty interesting. I also had wanted to just point out that the white in the summer set is different than the white that I've been using to mix all my colors. The white is actually a Irodori white. The white that I've been using to mix is just the artist gouache white, and you can see the difference. If you look at the label, there'll be a little, it's kanji, I know that, but I guess it's the kanji for Irodori. It'll be in the left hand corner of the paint, right above the Japanese name for the paint's name. The artist gouache won't have that. I haven't had any issues mixing the Irodori and normal artist gouache together. I tend to do that a bit with my paintings and just haven't had any issues. So yeah, it's not like a set that you have to use on its own. You can just use whatever gouache you have. Doesn't seem to react negatively to anything that I have, except for the Turner Designer Gouache. I would not recommend that. It did not like those. And the last set that I'm going to be covering is the Autumn set, and I'm sorry that my little swatches get very small on this one. I did not paint straight or correctly on this paper, so it got all tilted and I started to run out of space. But I haven't really used a lot of the colors in the autumn set. I'm trying to look at it. It's more geared towards reds, oranges, and browns, which I don't tend to use a lot of in my paintings. I tend to use more of yellow ochre, but also blues and a little bit of green. So I don't think this set would be one that I jump to that often. It would have to be very not spontaneous, but I would have to be planning a painting around using this set. And again, one of the colors I really like is this elm green. It reminds me of the russet green from the winter set and the sap green in my oil paintings. To be honest, the elm green and the russet green look very similar to me, but it's interesting because they only share one pigment together, PG8. Russet green has PY17 and PR83, and elm green has a PY42, but they just look very, very similar to me. I really, really like this indigo that's in the autumn set. Looking at all the other sets, this is the only deep dark blue that I'm actually seeing. The autumn set also comes with another gold. This one is antique rich gold, and it looks like it's the same pigment information, if I'm reading that correctly. I think it is. This rich gold is more like a bronze to me than the antique gold in the winter set, which is more of like a generic yellowy gold that you would see. So again, it's nice to get a metallic thrown into the sets. And I also wanted to show a little bit of the painting that I made using the spring set. You can see on the back most of the colors I used. I tend to use a very limited color palette. This was actually the most amount of colors that I've used in one painting, so it's not as limiting, but when I was working on it, it was very easy to layer and mix everything. I wasn't getting very muddy colors, and I'm just very happy with how it turned out. But yeah, that's my video of swatching everything. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble a little bit about TSA and my cat throwing a fit, and a little bit about these paints. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.